live radio, live television, whatever it is, we're going live. It's Locked On Warriors. Casey Stern, former host on NBA on TNT, NBA TV. He's going to join me. We're going to talk about Stephen Curry's Rolling Stone interview. We're going to talk about why Chris Paul is responsible for every bad NBA owner on the planet. It's his fault. It's totally his fault. There's no question about that. We're going to break all that down and so much more. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. So is Casey Stern on Twitter. Literally, just DM
I'm free
him.
and available, really.
You're open anytime. Do not hesitate.
Certainly remind me not to make you my agent. Available, yes. Free, not so much. Depending upon what you're saying available for, because I'm a free agent in all facets of the game.
You can follow Casey Stern on Twitter at Casey Stern. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Look, it's September 13th today. This is not the time of year to be inundated with incredible NBA news, especially with the Warriors. So we're going to go all across the NBA today. We're going to start with the Warriors, though. Yesterday, Kylan Mills and I touched on this a lot. I want to get your perspective, Casey Stern, someone who is more on the national beat. Love your perspective. You're a New York kid. Kevin Durant, your favorite player on the planet outside of Kyrie Irving, decided that he's going to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm being facetious, obviously. But Stephen Curry came out in a Rolling Stone interview and Rolling Stone does not interview pro athletes that much. So that's kind of indicative of Steph's stature culturally and otherwise in the US and the world. But what were your thoughts on that interview? Did you get a chance to read it? Did you have any opinions formulated in that brilliant head of yours pertaining to Steph being enthusiastic about Kevin Durant? Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I love Steph, and he definitely got crossover, everything, right? In terms of both him and his wife in social media and pop culture. Look, Kevin Durant, I've said this forever. I don't care what sport it is. If you are a pain in the ass and you come with a lot of problems and he's got enough baggage to bring like the JFK baggage claim with him, right? It's okay as long as you're a dude, as long as you perform. When nobody cared about Yasiel Puig licking bats when he was hitting home runs, then the guy was a fool, right? Adam LaRoche could have brought 17 kids. He could have had as many kids as Sean Kemp on the field. And then all of a sudden, Jerry Reinsdorf and company and Kenny Williams of the White Sox didn't want him there because he's hitting 200 instead of 300, right? If you're Kevin Durant and you're a teammate and you got a chance to play with that guy, you know how great he is.
Yeah.
You know what he brings a team. So you're willing to take everything else that comes with it. You'd be stupid not to. I mean, Steph Curry also, I'll say this lastly. Here's a guy who you got to have ego to have success at that level, right? But he also doesn't have too much ego that it brings the word that kills every relationship, including business relationships in life, and that's pride, right? He didn't have too much of it where he's not going to say, hey, look, I'm the man here. I don't want Kevin Durant back in here. I already dealt with this once. This guy's a pain in the neck. I'm the star. No. He's not that way. That's why he and Clay are so beloved. That's why they're great. That's why they're different. That's why they're not Kyrie. That's why they see the earth the same shape everyone else does, except that dude, right? So for me, I'm all for it. And I would have been all for it. I think it's better for the Warrior fans that you don't have to root for Kevin Durant, to be quite honest. But I thought what Steph said, look, wouldn't you? I'd want to play with Kevin Durant. I mean, he'd make it easier for everybody. I just don't want to talk to him very much.
I thought the empathy from Steph and the insight he provided, which is that Kevin Durant has not had an easy upbringing. That is the one thing I do feel a little bad about when I criticize KD is that his childhood was rough. So I could understand what Steph was saying about the trust issues, which Kevin does have a lot of. I'm not excusing some of the ridiculous things he said, but I just love that Steph is so empathetic. While like you said, he's got the humility to welcome back a superstar player. He doesn't care about the limelight, the touches of the ball. It just reminded everyone yet again that how classy of an individual Stephen Curry is. Speaking of the Brooklyn Nets, by the way, what are you expecting from that team this year, real quick?
Pandemonium, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. By the way, look, and nothing against KD's upbringing, but that only excuses the first 9 burner accounts on Twitter. I mean, honestly, come on, man. Like, at some point, let's be fair. This guy is like, he's a Rod level insecure, Kevin Durant. It's ridiculous.
He is.
But the Nets, I think it's gonna be a mess. I said this to you when we talked about this after they had the whole kumbaya, we're all together. Kevin Durant gonna want out before the season's over. That's going to be a mess. He may not say it until the season's over. You may not hear it directly until after the playoffs, but he's going to want out before that season's over. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, ran over Steve Nash, publicly and basically, look, whether Steve Nash is a bad coach or not, he wanted him there. I mean, that tells you he willing to throw anybody else under the bus. I'm sorry. This, I'm hooping and I don't care about anybody else. He's insecure. At some point, he's going to realize what everybody else realizes, that Kyrie, you can't win with that dude. He's not a winning player. That thing's not going to work again. They'll try and make trades at the deadline, right? We're going to be through that all over again, Cyrus. Who can fix it? Who can they bring in to make all this work with Ben Simmons and with Kyrie and all these guys with stuff to prove? I think he'll want out before the year's over. I think it's going to be a mess. Their talent will win enough games that they'll be a 3 or 4 seed in the East, but I think they'll be a mess. Yeah.
We're doing a live show today, and Kamal has on. We're addressing questions, comments, throw them at us.
Yes, please. We're free and available, according to Cyrus.
And, it's a sparse crowd today. We're recording this at 1:15 Pacific time. Usually the early afternoon or shows have a difficult time drawing in numbers.
Don't act like this is lunch at Fridays on like a Wednesday. I remember when I used to wait tables, like you'd start and they give you like Monday lunch. It's like, I'm in a bar, right? Like there's no one here. Like that guy at the end who like Norm, he not getting at a table. But there are people here. And that's why the great thing is you watch it in replay. I'm still watching reruns of Seinfeld. People will be watching this 10 years from now. We're good.
I'm glad you said that because reruns of Seinfeld, I do that with Netflix. You just press play and your whole day is filled with a season or 2 of Seinfeld. It's a perfect background programming. Why is first of all, Kamal writes, in reality, if the Warriors want KD, they can get him. But I think we can trust the big 3 system and the young guys. And he also adds as well, that's why Steph is the most likable player in the NBA. I think Klay Thompson might actually be a little more likable just because Steph has thrown successfully so many daggers at other fan bases and teams that there is a little there's a bad taste in Cleveland fans' mouths, now in Celtics fans' mouths.
Have you ever met people in Cleveland and been there? So let me tell you, first of all, there's a bad taste in their mouths for everything. I'll tell you a quick story. So I was working there at Turner, doing the playoffs, and I'm telling you, like, I felt like a heel at like a WWE arena, like, and we were just like covering the sport. Like, they're not happy about anything in Believe Land. So let's be fair. But I'm with you. I would ask you this though. Yeah. Do you think what was your take? I couldn't believe on Twitter today, I'm scrolling down, we've got Ronnie 2K or whatever the heck his name is. And I like NBA 2K, but it's like, I don't need what is that? Right. So like,
why is he famous?
I have no idea. The guy's got like,
he's like 1 million followers.
Really like, what the hell am I doing wrong? God, seriously.
You don't play video games. That's it.
It's on my agent Cyrus said I'm free and available. So now it's like, what the hell? By the way, follow me at Casey Stern. So no, but seriously, like, he going back and forth with Klay about like ratings. Like, I don't want to hear players complaining about like their Madden rating or their NBA 2K rating. Like, I can't just get on Kevin Durant. There's an insecurity level that's like beyond if you really care. Now, you care about what your peers think of you? Sure. Like Ronnie 2K put you at like 87 in shooting and you want to cry about it? Come on, I don't want to hear about that.
And for people that don't know what you're talking about, there's a Twitter user, whatever his account is, where Ronnie 2K,
the 2K guy. He's like, I don't even know what that means, really.
He's just a person who plays video games, and for some reason, people like him. It's that simple. And so him and Klay Thompson, I guess we're having an exchange or something where Klay Thompson is not happy with his NBA 2K rating. I think he was given like an 88. And so he publicly expressed that. And you're right. It is funny, the fragile egos of all these players. But
by the way, I've now fired you as my agent. I've hired Rick V8, who said I'm the best guest ever. So it's Rick V8. I don't know. Does that mean he's drinking V8? That is the juice.
I don't know. Yeah, Rick V B. I think
Is
that's
that a
a B,
B?
actually.
Okay, my glasses, I do have them. They're not on.
Yeah,
If
Rick
you could
VB
tell.
writes, this is the worst guest ever.
No, he
Doesn't
said
like the
best.
chemistry.
He said best.
Oh, I
He
mean, I'm
said
reading
best.
that wrong. I'm sorry. This is the best
He
guest.
said,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
best guest
Come on,
ever. Love
man.
the
Now
chemistry.
you're really fired. Like as my agent. Like he said I was available. Now I'm trying to get a cheap pop off something somebody said nice about me, and you're killing me. No, he said the best
Well,
guest ever. So
in just a
Rick
moment,
VB,
we're
appreciate
gonna.
it.
First of all, Steve Nash does have the Warrior connection. I want to know, why is Steve Nash sticking around? Like, do you not have anything better to do? I would love your reaction to that. And we got to talk about Sarver, the Suns owner. He got penalized today. And of course, the one common theme between the Clippers and the Suns, Chris Paul. I don't think it's a coincidence. First, got to give some love to a longtime sponsor of this program, BetOnline, and more specifically, BetOnline.net. They're your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. I was just on there. I thought the Niners -6.5 last Sunday was a lock. It wasn't. But nonetheless, if I had listened to the folks at BetOnline.net, I would have been fine. Are you a gambling man, by the way, Casey? Do you
The last bet I placed was Chris Chandler and the Atlanta Falcons were getting like 17 points in the Super Bowl or whatever that was with the Dirty
Yes.
Bird. That was like the last official bet like that I played way before you were allowed necessarily to do it.
Yeah.
I don't now because, as you said, I'm free and available. So my finances are not at a level where I'm throwing away money necessarily. However, I am looking for a sponsor of my podcast Unfiltered, which you can get into my Twitter at Casey Stern, or you could get to the podcast on YouTube and the channel. And by the way, David Aldridge will be my guest tomorrow doing an NBA season preview, my friend and former teammate.
Wow.
Which would be fun. We've got Buck Martinez this week, Jason Stark, Howie Rose, voice of the Mets, as I plug all this stuff. So I don't care if it's Brita. Do they still do filters for water? Like I don't
so.
bet.
Yeah, I think
but
so. Yeah.
I'm unfiltered, or maybe just freedom. Like since I'm free and available, just anything having to do with freedom. You can contact Cyrus, my agent, at Dog Surf Roadshow and get in touch.
I feel horrible because in that minute-long shameless plug inside of an actual advertisement, I forgot to mention your podcast, Unfiltered. That was my bad.
That's right. I just totally screwed up your. Yes, BetOnline is where I would go if I was going to bet. That's everywhere I'd go would be BetOnline.
It's fine. And the Chris Chandler reference was gold. That's back in 1998 when the Falcons.
Oh my gosh, it's so long ago.
I'll never forget Dennis Green's face in that NFC Championship game when Gary Anderson missed the only field goal of the whole season, and it cost the team the Super Bowl to make the Super Bowl. It was what a season that was. Anyways, BetOnline.net. It has everything you need. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events: MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, so much more. BetOnline. It's where the game starts.
Can I ask you
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Kevin, what were we gonna say, by the way?
Let me ask you a question. So it's fine. So BetOnline, to give them now overly support them here on the other side of this BetOnline break, brought to you by BetOnline, because you can bet online. You a football guy? You a football fan?
Yes. Why?
Did you watch any of the game last night? Did you watch this breakdown or see what happened at the end of this game where Nathaniel Hackett, the coach of the Broncos,
brilliant head coach. Oh, he's
like
a genius.
He lost track of time, and they end up trying a 64-yard field goal. How is it that NBA coaches and NFL coaches screw up time management more so than people who, like, I feel like when we play video games, we have practice of this for years. Like maybe coaches should be sitting in front of places like Madden and with Ronnie 2K practicing, how do I take timeouts? Like, how can you?
He was the same guy who was there with the Packers when they kicked the field goal in that NFC Championship game a couple years ago, wasn't he? He's the same guy, right?
Like, how could you be Russell Wilson, like, is on your team? It's 4th and 5. You're taking a 64-yard field goal. I said it was like somebody drunk playing Madden and accidentally they hit X for field goal and they had no timeouts left.
Oh, absolutely.
So I just wanted to bring up, if you were betting online last night, I mean, that's the great part about betting. We put all of this in there and we have all these different things that we break down. And then some like asinine coach gets in the way and all of a sudden you lost all your money.
I actually thought it was a genius call, man. I mean, 64-yard field goals, that's I mean, when you look at the
They happen every
percentages,
day. Oh, they happen all the time.
every day. I mean,
Oh, yeah. All the time.
It's not
It's like a
64.
Klay Thompson jumper from the elbow.
I mean,
Happens to
if
you,
it was
sure, it's no problem.
74, maybe I'm getting a little
Right.
sketchy at that point.
Yeah.
64, come on, man. That's
Yeah,
like an
no
extra
problem.
point.
No
But that was
problem.
absolutely asinine. Of course. What the hell is that guy doing? Why does he have a head coaching job? Why does John Elway hire him? There's a million questions that came in my head. Yes.
Yeah.
Why is, real quick, I got to give this read here. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Which NBA player moves the betting line the most this season? Locked On and the BetOnline odds makers present the NBA top 50 most valuable players starting on September 19th, 6 days from now. Find it on Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. You can follow the host of Unfiltered. There's only one Unfiltered out there, okay? It's a very unique name. No one's ever come up with that before, so make sure you Google Unfiltered.
Never in caps, Cyrus.
And you'll easily find Casey Stern's show. It's just called Unfiltered. That's all you got to do. Okay, all kidding aside, you got to search Casey Stern.
I appreciate it.
And then you can find Unfiltered, available on YouTube, podcast channels. Fantastic show. David Aldridge, my goodness, great booking there. And on Twitter, DMs are open at Casey Stern. I really want to quickly address this before we talk about Steve Nash, because someone here is trying to poke my button. Douglas Mikes writes, over under how many times has Cyrus mentioned KD and GP2? Who should I be talking about? It's incredible. I get some grief for this, because apparently a lot of people just don't like Kevin Durant's name mentioned on this show. And apparently people, I don't know, Gary Payne II, that's a new one. I didn't realize that became a tired subject. What else do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Andre Iguodala and whether or not he's deciding to retire because that's headline news? Or should we talk about, I don't know, Quindary Weatherspoon and why he has a two-way contract instead of a guaranteed deal? What else is there to talk about, folks? Deal with it. I'm talking about Kevin Durant. Did they go over the over? I don't know what the OU was for that, but I digress. Who cares? It's Kevin Durant.
As long as you create a drinking game out of it, you're fine. Because then either way you win. Like if you don't drink, that's good. And if you do, then you won't notice. So it's fine.
That's a positive spin, my man. That is a positive spin, my man.
And it's September 13th. Really, like, shut your mouths, people. And I like Douglas. Follow me at Casey Stern. Go ahead.
Instead of griping about Kevin Durant mentions, follow Casey Stern's lead. Take a shot every time I mention it.
Or just
Kevin
follow
Durant.
me.
Yeah, that's it. It's that easy. Why is Steve Nash staying with the Nets? Like speaking of pride,
what else is he gonna do?
I don't know if he has pride, because if he
what else is he gonna do?
I don't know. Great question.
What else is he gonna do?
He's gonna get fired.
He's gonna go back to like helping an organization and like, helping them like take jump. Like, what's he gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, unless he's gonna dip out and just be like, I'm done for a while from basketball. At like, I mean, he already was like working on like analyzing soccer, then was back into the game. Then he worked himself up to coach, decided he wanted to do that. What's he going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
fair point.
That's the thing. Plus, I always say it's like there's only so many jobs. Like,
True.
Even in the business that we work in, there are only so many. But like, imagine having 30, 32, depending upon what sport. I mean, that's pretty much the number in these sports, kind of where you're at. That's it. You get one of those and you're in Brooklyn and, you got KD and Kyrie and Ben Simmons. Don't you want the challenge of trying to figure it out? I mean, maybe I'm being pro Nash, but like, if you're really a winner, that's a challenge to try and figure that out. Well, go ahead. Let's see what you can do.
I mean, but it's just, I mean, you're going to get fired. This man has been just bad-mouthing you, trying to get you fired from your job. And then you just have to, I don't know. It just seems weird to me. Douglas Mike, by the way, again mentions, and I remember this. I told you before to talk about other teams. All right, fine. We'll talk about other teams. Sure. So this one individual, and there's a few of them out there who just hate the fact that I constantly bring up Kevin Durant. It's almost like a traumatic experience in their lives for some reason. Kevin Durant, I don't know what he did to you in a previous life, but fine. We'll talk about the Suns. Sarver.
I think we should just pick a random player in the NBA that's at the end of someone's bench and just spend 20 minutes talking about him and see if he ever complains about it again.
Well, I mean,
we're going to talk about Quentin Grimes for the next 15 minutes. Anyone interested?
But what do you want to know about other teams? Like, there's no other team that compares to the Warriors. I've talked about the Clippers extensively. I'll talk about them again at some point if you want. The Warriors have no legitimate threats right now. They are the kings of the castle. But I do want to mention the Suns, because their owner, who has been investigated for months, and has been suspended for a whole year. He's also been fined $10 million. Casey, in your opinion, and I'm going to read off in a second what he was accused of by the NBA from their investigation, is the punishment just? And why does Chris Paul continue to be responsible for all these horrible owners?
Well, first of all, there's no just that's enough if all this stuff that he was doing, he has done. But there have been enough things that have gone around the NBA in the years that I was sitting there and dealing with it for years, covering it about this guy being a jackass that, you pretty much already knew that that was the case, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just look at the losing franchise that this guy had for so long. I mean, I would say before CP3, as much as you joke about him, he's the only thing that saved them from Sarver because he'd been a nightmare. I mean, I go back to like when Josh Jackson was drafted 3rd overall, and I'm like, imagine being this guy. Like, you can't succeed being a high pick. It's what makes Devin Booker so great,
Yeah.
is that he wasn't affected by the losing nature and the disgrace of the cesspool of what the Suns have been. But if this guy did what it says that he's done in terms of, from racism to misogyny to harassment to everything else, then the guy's a complete ass. And the
Oh
only thing
yeah.
that he's got to value is that, like, you can't fire owners, right? So, like, what does this suspension mean? He's not in the building. He can't touch and feel the team. Like, is it going to be like a baseball manager who's like smoking a cigarette in the dugout and still running things? You know what I mean? Even though
New
they're not
England,
out
baby.
there.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know. But to me, there's no proper punishment or none that's too much for what this guy apparently through, because it's not the NFL. So it's like when the NBA investigates, and it's like, okay, you figure they dug into this thing. If this guy did all the things that they say, in addition to just being a terrible owner, which he could be suspended for anyway, good riddance. Get the hell out of here.
I don't. So here's what the investigation found. How do they say, Mr. Sarver, on at least 5 occasions during his tenure as the owner of both the Suns and the Mercury. I mean, that is egregious in itself that he owns a WNBA team, given the information we know now. He repeated the N-word while recounting the statements of others. Are you that stupid? There is no excuse for ever uttering that word. Why are you that dense? Let's move on. Mr. Sarver engaged in instances of inequitable conduct toward female employees, made many sex-related comments in the workplace, made inappropriate comments about the physical appearance of female employees and other women, and on several occasions engaged in inappropriate physical conduct toward male employees. I'm curious to know what that means. Is it like butt slaps? Is it, who knows what that is? Mr. Sarver engaged in demeaning and harsh treatment of employees, including by yelling and cursing at them. Yeah, what? It is a shame that you can't fire owners. It really is, because the Knicks, your team, should have fired their owner 20 years ago.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm sure that's a sore subject, right? Should we just move on from that?
No,
But
I mean, it's fine. I mean, but it's like, you mentioned my Knicks, and it's like, I say to myself, like, if I actually own the Knicks, these things would never happen. So it's like, they're not mine. I'm just like attached to them, and they force me into therapy. But there is, there's a big conversation here. So let's have it. It's about culture, right? And this is very Warrior related. All right. And we are live right now. I feel like Buffer. We are live.
yeah, we're live. Yeah.
So
DMs are open.
yes, DMs are open and they're free and available. Culture is so important. Brian Daboll made a call for the Giants the other day on a 2-point conversion, and I'm a Giant fan.
Mhm.
It's like they may go 6-11 this year, but you're like, the balls on that guy, I want him, right? It's like a
Okay.
Mike Hudson video, he stands, right? It's like there's a culture, we're not going to accept it. I remember I tell the story all the time, covering baseball when Jim Leland took over the Tigers. They were 2 weeks into the season, and he was throwing
Love
tables,
him, by the way.
freaking out.
Love Jim
and
Leland.
and they were like, he kind of went overboard, but his thing was, and he said it I remember he said in the presser, he said, they're not going to look at that jersey and lose anymore. Like, they need to know this is not how we're going to be, right? The Warriors have a culture, look from the JaVale McGee's all the way to the Andrew Wiggins and how many in between, like the San Antonio Spurs, right? Winning cultures where guys come in and they fit in and they do all these things. The Suns have had a losing culture for how long? Well, guess what? Those things in companies and in families, they start at the top. If it's
Yes.
kids, it's usually the parents. If it's employees, it's usually the employer. And if it's a
100%.
baseball or a basketball team, it's usually the owner. And in this case, it's definitely the owner.
You're so right, man. That it goes with almost every organization. I emphasize that repeatedly for decades, that feces rolls from the top. That is the adage. I'm saying the clean version of that. No pun intended. But dude, Sarver's a dirtbag. There's just plain and simple. I literally, when this stuff first came out, you probably have way more connections than I do in the NBA, but I reached out to a couple sources I have in the Suns, and they just confirmed everything. They were like, in fact, what Baxter Holmes has researched in his story didn't even touch on half the stuff that he actually does. This guy is a dog with fleas, and no offense to dogs, but it's crazy, and you can't fire him. That is insane.
Well,
I
that's
don't
the
think
thing
a
with
year
an
was
owner.
enough.
There's nothing you could do, right?
It's a shame. It's an absolute shame that they can't. I mean, the weird thing is though they did like Sterling crossed
That's
so
the
many
thing.
egregious
Yeah,
lines.
you
They
got to
did get
go
rid of
like,
him.
you got to, well, this is like, this is almost like, probation to the point of like, okay, you get 1 year, the 10 million won't even touch a guy like this. But, he does another thing, then okay. Then, right, it's like, how do we get him kind of tossed out of the league? Is he bad for the league? Because eventually it's like all the owners in the NBA, like with Sterling, it's like to push you out. But this is a losing culture. And ironically, it's like, it makes you to go back to it. Devin Booker, who, look, we all love, if you're an NBA fan, it's hard not to. You want to know about a winning mentality. For this guy to fight through all of how many coaching changes, including like a week or two into the season one time, all the nonsense that they've had to deal with. Chris Paul helped save the culture on the floor. But it's amazing that Devin Booker didn't fall. Because look at Andrew Wiggins. I just mentioned him. Look what he looked like in the other two places. He's not a different player. Yeah, he's in a different role, but he's around people that set a standard and a stage that he's got to follow. And that starts from the top. Always does. Always.
And like, it's crazy. So in a year from now, he just comes back, and it's just that's the part that's crazy to me. We just have to forget that he existed. And speaking of the Suns, they're not going to be a threat to the Warriors this year. They did nothing this offseason to improve their team.
Sat there.
Nothing.
Yep.
They have players who are more disgruntled now than they were a year ago. Chris Paul is a year older than he was. Their big free agent acquisition this year was Damian Lee, a bench player for the Golden State Warriors who played no meaningful minutes. And yet, I don't know if you saw that survey, by the way, that was released by ESPN a week or so ago. Tim Bontemps interviewed 15 anonymous coaches, execs, and scouts. Asked various questions like, who do you think is going to win the Western Conference, Eastern Conference, the title, MVP, so forth. 3 out of these 15 individuals picked the Suns to win the Western Conference, the same number as the Golden State Warriors. We talked a moment ago about incompetency in football.
I think the only reason is coaching because they trust Monty, right? And that group. I mean, I think in this case, right? And look, here's the thing. Chris Paul, say what you want. Right. And it's like one of these things, like I dealt with this, and I'm not comparing him to Derek Jeter specifically as the same kind of player, but Derek Jeter in his career, right, went from a guy who people thought was, and I'm not one of these people, but a lot of people nationally, because they hate the Yankees and whatnot, thought he was overrated. Right. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, maybe we underrated his career when you kind of look back at it. Chris Paul's not overrated. He's not the greatest player that's ever lived. He's not Steph Curry. He's not Isaiah Thomas to me, but he's a shoe-in, no doubt, upper echelon dude and a Hall of Famer. Okay, that 28. Yeah. I mean, by the way, that's nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's okay. You don't have to be the greatest player that's ever lived. You go to Hall of Fame, pretty good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you got that, and you got Devin Booker, and you got the coaching that they have, and they got the pedigree at least of the year before last being there, I think that's probably what most of that is. And the other part I'd ask you is, for all the Clippers have with talent, with all the injury concerns and some of the load managing that needs to be done to get those guys on the floor, I'm sorry, that's a concern to me. The Clippers are no shoe-in for me in a long season. Tell me who's healthy when it matters.
Agreed.
And I don't know the answer to that.
And at 8 of those 15 coaches, scouts, and execs picked the Clippers to win the championship. Only 2 picked the Warriors. Why do you think what is the anti-Warriors bias in your opinion? Is it as simple as an East Coast thing?
It's just boredom. I think it's boredom.
Okay.
Like they've won before, they won a bunch. Okay, let's find I don't want to. If I tell you, every year that Jordan's there, that the Bulls are going to win, it's like anybody can do that, right? So I'm writing and I'm voting. I'm trying to find. I want to give you the call that, hey, remember what I said? Remember I knew that this team was going to. It's just it's more clickbait. It's more clickbait. Picking the Warriors seems simpler because to me, if it's not the Warriors, and we've talked about this, then I think you're picking the Bucks. I mean, to me, if that's the other team, because I'm sorry, I'm a huge Giannis guy. This guy is a freak of nature, and you see already in the offseason, every time like he fails at something, he's like it's some kind of a cyborg. He's like finds some way to like improve himself.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of what he does.
Agreed.
And what Bud does with that group. For me, Milwaukee's a dangerous team. They're a dangerous team.
To me, the Bucks and maybe the Celtics, and I still
Maybe.
say in the West, the second best team is the Grizzlies. But yeah, you're right. The Bucks to me are the only one that is worthy of being in the
They're
conversation with
dangerous.
Golden
Yeah.
State. What are you? And again, you have your own podcast and YouTube show called
Yes,
Unfiltered.
I do.
I hope you and I have our own show on Locked On soon as an NBA show. Let's hope they
I'm looking to
greenlight
be
that.
locked on. Hello,
Wait, what's up?
locked on people in the corner. I'm looking to lock on. If you're in the corner office, I'm looking to lock on. Please lock on with me. You can contact me here.
Locked On DMs are open.
Yes, locked on DMs are open.
Locked on Kyrie.
I am available.
Basketball, maybe the show should just be called
baseball,
Locked On.
knitting. I in my podcast that I did today at the end, I talked about watching Cobra Kai season 5. I could talk about,
Any
watching.
good?
Yeah, really good. I love
Okay.
that show. I love the nostalgia of it. Give me all that. Like, give me anything from the 80s, like the Karate Kid. Are you kidding me?
Of course.
Like, you're bringing back old characters. Like, the
Hell
acting
yes.
is I think Billy Zabka is actually a good actor, but Ralph
Agreed.
Macchio is horrific. But it doesn't matter. Like, did you ever watch the Karate Kid for his acting? Like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
What are you and you're going to get David Aldridge on Unfiltered tomorrow.
Yes.
What are you guys going to talk about? What's
Cobra Kai.
I love it. David.
Probably a little bit about how crappy his Nationals are. He's a huge baseball fan.
Gotcha.
But we'll do some NBA season preview tomorrow and just bounce around the league. And for me, it's like this is a great time of year because I'm a huge hockey fan too. You start to really count down to those 2 seasons that are coming now, 3-4 weeks away. College football just got started. You're at the point baseball heading into the postseason. The NFL just got it. Really, for a sports fan, like this is the best time of the. I know March, I get it, and people in your NBA, it's the finals. But if you're talking about like, I want to have something every night. So like for me, I don't have to feel bad that my social life is horse and the crap that comes with it. It's a family show. I don't have to worry about that. DMs are open. Like I got sports every day. I'm good with that. That's fine. I need something. I got 3 kids and 40 sports. We're fine.
Do you? I love it, man. In your opinion, is there a threat to the Warriors? Like you mentioned the Bucks. Like, will they beat them this year? What is your super early prediction right now for the NBA?
I think the Clippers are good, but you got to tell me about health. It's impossible to predict. I do think Ty Lue
chemistry, right? I mean,
is a really good coach. I do think that the chemistry there is still unproven. They've got all the pieces. Their depth pieces are improved, which make those winning kind of those glue pieces are improved. Right. And they are, right? So that's going to help. And that may help them kind of manage the time on the floor for some of these guys during the season, but I don't know who's going to be healthy. I like Milwaukee. I do. I think Miami's dangerous. Miami
who's dangerous?
I think Miami in the East, in terms of the East, like, look, I don't know if any East team's beating the West unless it's Milwaukee. But I think in the East, everybody talks about the Nets now, and everybody's, we know about the Bucks. The Celtics overachieved for me a little bit last year. You had all those trade rumors. They're not very deep. Gallo's hurt, right? And that would have been a nice addition for them.
It would have been huge.
I would not be surprised if Miami was the 2 seed behind Milwaukee, ahead of Brooklyn and ahead of Boston. It would not surprise me at all.
I know I got to lose you here in a moment. You got 3 kids. You just mentioned a moment ago. 3 beautiful.
I got time. I mean, you could rush.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Then I won't rush. First of all, you're in a new
time.
room. What the hell's going on there? Like you,
I'm just in case people are always wondering, like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Now I literally have an elephant in the room.
I saw something the other day. God damn, it's hard to keep a straight face and attitude here with you. I saw something the other day that it made sense in terms of a Russell Westbrook trade destination, and that's the team you just uttered, the Miami Heat. That actually makes a little sense to me. That's the only team that I could see that working. Your thoughts on that? Like let's say it's Lowry for Westbrook and the 2
I think
first.
Kyle's big there. Like I think because of he fits. That Miami doesn't have to look. They're gonna beat you up, and they're a tough team, right?
Yeah.
And they make big shots. That's kind of their identity,
yeah.
Right? Russell Westbrook, who we've talked about it, I like more than most. I mean, I feel like now he needs some defenders. Like we all know the things he can't do. Pretty talented dude. You look at him in the heyday, run up and down the floor, and there are many guys we've ever seen who could do what he does, right?
True.
He's not a big shot maker, right? He's not. Doesn't fit in there. He's not a real leader, and Kyle Lowry is. I don't care what anybody says. That guy answered those questions in Toronto.
No, you're right.
And
You're right.
Kyle Lowry is a bigger shot maker probably than Russell Westbrook, even though he's not a playmaker to the level of Russell Westbrook. So I don't know. And then the last thing, Cyrus, is Jimmy Butler. You don't know if it's going to be a perfect mesh or he's going to hate the guy. And that's a big thing. Like Jimmy Butler works with what they have. Those guys resonate towards him, and he's at like the heart of the snake or whatever, the Heat culture. Russell Westbrook, I mean, I like Russ, but Heat culture, Russell Westbrook, like Pat Riley talking body fat. By the way, can we talk about Pat? I like Pat Bev, but the idea he walks in, I'm going to come teach the Lakers how to win like I did in Minnesota. First of all, Minnesota didn't win shit. Okay, and I know it's a family show. All right, they didn't win shit. That's number one. And number two, like LeBron's on this team. Are you serious? Like, come on, man, come on.
Yeah,
and I like Pat Bev.
You're referring to the Pat Bev comments where he said that he made the playoffs last year. They didn't, the Lakers. But Douglas Mikes totally redeemed himself with his comment here. Russell Westbrook is like putting pineapple on your pizza. I wholeheartedly agree. The only reason why I like the trade idea is because while if Kyle Lowry was healthy, if he wasn't like 37 or whatever old age he's approaching, I would agree. 37. But I don't think you can really rely on him. So if you're Miami, I consider that trade. I really would. It's the only team that makes sense.
Is it better having less and asking more from Tyler Hero, maybe, right? Than having Westbrook.
Yeah.
And Hero wants to do more and not be a sixth man anymore, right? And certainly, the scoring is not going to be a problem for him. He's not afraid. But that's the thing. The Heat have daggers. They got Jimmy Butler, like Tyler Hero, the guys on that, they're not afraid on that team, and Russell Westbrook sometimes is too unafraid, like thinks it's all about him, loses himself in a moment. He's kind of caught, don't you notice, between like, I want to be old Russ, and now he's like too much not old Russ. It's like he needs his balls back. Something, right? Like, doesn't it feel like that? Like, I'd like to see him kind of get unleashed somewhere where he can, all right, let's see what you can do. Go carry a team offensively, but that team's not going to be Miami.
I'll end on this note. Let's go back to the Warriors real quick. I don't know if we talked about this last time you came on. Jonathan Kuminga was thrown under the bus a little bit by Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith supposedly has sources that tell him that there's concern within the Warriors about Kuminga's discipline, his commitment, his work ethic. Your thoughts? Is it, in your opinion, I know this is just opinions, but in your opinion, look, man, you're a brilliant observer of the game. That's like 2/3 of the battle when it comes to covering the sport. Is there anything to worry about with Kuminga? And for that matter, the Warriors trio of youngsters that they're going to rely on this year, including Moses Moody and James Wiseman?
No, because they got Steph, Steve Kerr, and Clay, and Draymond. So no, because guys fall in line and they figure it out. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, when young players played for Pop, and even think of like people only think about like the winning years, like Bryn Forbes. Nobody was letting him handle the ball ever, like anywhere coming out of college. And all of a sudden, like Pop's got him like in a sort of relevant team, like ball hand. Like it's even the littlest things that the Spurs, they would find roles for guys, right, and elevate them. The Warriors do that as well as anybody right now because of their culture, where we've used often. I'm not worried about. Look, it may be true. It may be true. Sometimes these things get leaked on purpose because a team doesn't want to get on a guy. They don't want to have it in the room, but they want him to have to face the music a little bit. It's very possible that somebody in the organization purposely fed Stephen A. that so that Kuminga would know his role a little bit. I've
heard that too. And it is possible. It actually sounds a little realistic. And I'm wholeheartedly with you. This environment is just so positive, and they've this organization, the way it's structured, is just so set up for success that I'm not worried at all. I think Kuminga is going to be fine. But I think if Kuminga's whatever, if there is an issue there, I think it's solved if Kuminga's showing up to practice at the same time as Stephen Curry and Jordan Poole. If he's there at the crack of dawn, like those two guys are, I think Kuminga's fine. I think he's fine regardless, but that would definitely shut up.
It's also an off season. It's also an off season. And you know what? Young kids, they don't know how to handle the off season as well. And they get big on their britches. You know what? If he's doing it in year, then that's the bigger problem. But it's very possible that somebody in the team got word that maybe not doing the workouts the way he's supposed to. He's not on track for what he's supposed to be doing. They don't want to have an issue where, like, in the room, such and such a guy did it. So, I mean, Steve or somebody passed it along. Look, those things, those code reds are ordered by coaches publicly all the time. And it plays out better when the bad guys of the media say it, right? Because even though everybody else could say it's not true, if it is, Kuminga knows internally it is. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that guy to look in the mirror and wake up a bit. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Let's end it on this note. You said you love the New York Giants. I love the San Francisco 49ers. These two teams have had such an incredible rivalry that does not exist right now because both teams are just a shell of their glory years. Are you worried about what are your thoughts on the Niners and your own team, the New York Giants? The Niners laid a massive egg.
Well, Lance is a mess. He's a mess.
I mean, it's one game. My close Niner friends are like, it was raining.
He's a mess. I don't want to hear rain. I don't care it's raining. You know what the problem is? When you're trying to win at a high level with a guy with no experience in that position, there's a reason that Troy Aikman went 1-15, I think it was, or whatever it was with Jimmy Johnson. Like, right? You cannot expect to win. This is not the NBA. At quarterback in the NFL, you can't expect to win and throw a kid out there and say, okay, we got high expectations for the season, but you got to learn on the fly. Because guess what? Learning on the fly in the NFL comes with bad interceptions and mistakes. Yep. So he looks like a mess. Man, Giants Niners, I think about 2 games specifically, one good memory, one really bad. The Matt Barr 5 field goal game in the NFC Championship game.
Don't go there.
Years ago.
Don't.
And then I was living in LA in 2000. And it had to be 1, 2, or 3 because that's when I was living there, somewhere in that area. The game where Jeff Garcia and Terrell Owens were down like 30 points or whatever the hell it was in the playoffs and came back. What a damn nightmare that was. That was a mess. The Giants team wasn't even that good, but that was such an unbelievable, of course, Terrell Owens and Jeff Garcia, the relationship of where T.O. would then eventually say that Jeff Garcia was afraid and sucked and whatever else he said. I mean, Terrell Owens and Russell Westbrook would have made a great teammate combo.
Casey, like when just to add to that, when I was really early in my media career, this is like 2002, I think, when all this stuff was going on, 2003, I would go to those press conferences and set up T.O. with just lob and softballs. Like, hey, T.O. And I no guilt, man. I was just cackling asking these questions, but I'd literally, during post-game press conferences, go, hey, Terrell, do you think the coaching staff could have planned out more passes for you? Do you think Jeff Garcia did not look your way enough? I was throwing so many questions that and T.O. would just roll with these things, and it just became headline news, man, for the whole week, because T.O. would obviously, of course he felt that way. He was like, yes, I wish the team did throw the ball my way more. Yes, I do feel like the coaching staff is not setting up, designing plays for me enough. And it was so easy to just lob these softballs out of man, because he would just roll with it. I miss him, and for sure, just for that reason.
Look, there are no I in team, but somewhere there's an I between T and O, and that was the only letter that there was. Great player, though. Great player.
Who is the QB for the Giants? Is it still Daniel Brown?
During that time, Dave Brown?
No, now.
Oh, Daniel Jones. Yeah, Daniel Jones.
I'm sorry.
You're combining 2 really crappy Giants quarterbacks in Dave Brown and Daniel Jones. Yeah, Daniel Jones is still, of course, I root for the Knicks, who were supposed to get Zion Williamson, which, by the way, now it's okay they didn't. But they're supposed to get Zion Williamson, the Duke basketball player, but instead my Giants got Daniel Jones, the Duke football player. So these are the problems that I live with.
Let me end on this note. Your Knicks did not get Donovan Mitchell. Were you pissed?
Pissed.
Your thoughts? Yeah,
super pissed.
I would be
super pissed. Look, here's the thing. Everybody's right to say, okay, they would have given a lot. They wouldn't have been as good as the Cavs became with him. Also true. They weren't going to be a contender to win the East this year with him. Also true. But you know what? The Knicks aren't going to the playoffs now, and I don't know how or when that's going to happen, and they would have been a playoff team if he's there. And when you are, I've said this to you before, when you're a Knicks fan and you got MSG and you got that building, the biggest thing the Knicks are battling against is they've got to bring the idea of New York back. I did a pod with Rudy Gay, who's Matt Mitchell's teammate, about a week before this, and Rudy was like, hell no, I wouldn't even want to go to New York. Like, I was asking him if he got traded in a trade to the Knicks with Mitchell, right? He didn't want to, because the way people look at New York, they want to go to MSG. It's everyone's favorite place to go play, but they don't want to be part of Dolan, the Knicks. They're not going to win. It's not Knicks fans. It's not the city. They need to bring that back. Donovan Mitchell would have put him back on national TV all the
Yep.
time, would have given him a
Yep.
4 or 5 seed somewhere in the conference like that, would have made them viable, would have made them more viable for somebody else to come next. And they lost all that. It was the wrong decision. I like RJ Barrett, but he's your second best option, maybe third. If you're a team that's trying to get to the finals, he's not carrying you anywhere. And I like him. I do.
I 100% with you. I feel like when you're in a position like the Knicks are, where you're just downtrodden, you're struggling year after year, you have to make this, swing for the big players. And like the Warriors, I remember back in, I think it was like 2010. Don't quote me on the exact year, but they made a trade to get David Lee from the Knicks, and they gave up a lot. And then they gave him a new huge deal. I can't remember if he was under a big deal or if they gave him another big deal. Clearly overpaid. But you have to, when you're a team that does not attract free agents, when you're a team that is as bad as the Knicks have been year after year, decade after decade, you got to swing for the fences, man. You got to give up a little more than you should. You need to get those superstars.
And I'll say it's the guy that's always been, like, the last few years. I always say this to friends of mine in the industry, Dame Lillard, and I love Dame. I do.
Yes, same.
That's been the guy who, it's like, he's stuck in Portland. No offense, it's a great city, but it's like, okay. But he always was on the outskirts of all-star teams when he shouldn't have been, right? Like, we knew he should, like, this whole thing about, like, he doesn't have to be Steph. He's a perennial all-star and a great player, right? And that's okay. But he was getting forgotten because he's in Portland. Dame Lillard, Dame time. Could you imagine at MSG what that would be like? Can you imagine how much of a bigger star, when you think of how great he is in the community, how great he is as a leader, the things he says in press conferences, where I don't know about you, I think he's one of the more well-spoken, like, interesting people in the league.
Agreed.
You put him in New York for the NBA, that's a monstrous win. I hope the Blazers win 4 games and that he wants the hell out of there, because to me, they're going to eventually have to trade all these picks and go get a dude. And man, Dame Lillard finishing his career with the Knicks would be so great for everybody involved. That's the guy I'm my eyes on.
Yeah, that sounds legit. I'm still laughing at the fact Portland. It's great. It's okay.
Yeah, it's like, I've been to St. Louis 9,000 times. Yes, it's great that the store is closed for baseball. What do you want me to do? Honestly, I go to the same 2 bars for like 15 years in the postseason. I had enough.
Oh my God. It is always a pleasure, man. You can follow again.
Anytime.
DMs are open.
DMs are open, free and available, unfiltered on the pod. Please get it. Jump on the YouTube channel at Casey Stern on Twitter. And I am a free agent available. If you are looking to hire somebody who has a lot of passion in this business and Beyond a Podcast is looking to get locked on to a position near you, you can call me at said phone number once you call my agent, Cyrus.
I love you, man. And I have no idea. I have no idea what my next show is going to be, but we'll have another show at some point soon. And again, I hope you and I get this rolling soon. I hope the Locked On folks greenlight this so we could have either a weekly or daily NBA show. Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. And again, check out Unfiltered. Just search Casey Stern. David Aldridge is his guest tomorrow. I'm definitely going to check that out. Always a pleasure, my man. Always
Anytime,
fun.
bro. Anytime.
Yeah, dude.
And
likewise, man.
follow me, jump on and ask any questions and hang out to all of you. And I appreciate this, man. Always good to hop on with you, bro.
And dude, and I know I'm not David Aldridge. I know I'm not Rudy Gay, but if you ever want to guest for your show, man, I'm available.
Dude,
I'd love to come on you.
The only reason why, like, I haven't asked you as a guest yet is because the NBA season, if you haven't noticed, to the people who are wondering why you're talking about Kevin Durant, it's in the off season, and I've been doing a lot of baseball. Probably the first NBA centric, actually second after Rudy Gay will be tomorrow with David Aldridge. So yeah, we'll talk plenty NBA. And look, if Billy Zabka is listening or watching, I'm happy to do some Cobra Kai. I'll let Chosen hop in, like whoever, man. Like I'm those, any of the members of Cobra Kai, we'll take it.
Love it. Later.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, you too.